What's up, everybody? Welcome into another edition of Crush City Territory. My name is Chandler Rome with Josh Reddick. Tyler Stafford, who knows where he is? He's got no voice. I
You
don't know if
guys,
that's
you guys have already gotten a sick day each on this pod, so just know mine is coming.
we've both been put on the IL with some form of discomfort from the Astros training staff. Tyler has no voice. I don't know if that's from yelling at Buzz Williams' plane as it left College Station for Maryland. I don't know if that's from cheering because the Astros got 5 extra base hits yesterday against the Minnesota Twins, equaling their amount from the first 6 games of the season. At some point, Tyler will be back, but Josh and I will hold it down today. Josh, we
We got
haven't
this.
had you do what?
So we got this.
Oh yeah, of course we do.
Yeah.
Josh, we haven't had you on since the season started. So I guess first of all, let's get your overall thoughts on 7 games in. The Astros are 3-4, picked up. Look, there are no must wins in April. There are no like unbelievably great wins in April, but it had to feel good for them to pick up that win yesterday in the Twins home opener at Target Field, kind of stop a 3-game skid. They're 3-4. They're pitching unbelievably well. They are hitting unbelievably poorly. Is that to be expected this early in the season? What have you taken away from the first 7 games the Astros have played?
I mean, let's just say what it is. It's the first 7 games of the season.
Yeah.
Let's not put this under a big magnifying glass and panic. I see a lot of panic on social media. Look, guys, they're 3-4. Yeah, they're not hitting. They're pitching great. There's positives all around this ball club right now. What these starters and these relievers are doing for them is fantastic. Bats are going to turn around. We know that's going to happen. Who cares? Let it go. The first week's over. Hit the reset button. But yeah, yesterday's win had to be good for those guys, except for one guy, well, which we'll get to later, I'm sure. But to get, I think the extra base hits is a positive sign considering how awful they were at home with, extra base hits, runners in scoring position. Just seems like an echo from last year, doesn't it? Runners in scoring
Yeah.
position was an issue for these guys last year, and that's something they have to be better at this year to score more runs. So they get the win, get a little off day today. We'll stay hot, stay warm, and get back out there tomorrow. So they've hit that reset button. Let's move forward. And that first week is behind us now.
Yeah, you mentioned some echoes from last year, and I think when you start reading comments, when you start reading fans are asking for something, the first thing I think a lot of them are talking about is this team doesn't hit at home. It has been hard for them to hit at Minute Maid Park the last few years. They did not hit Park to start this season. Josh, as someone that has hit there a lot, and we've had discussions about the batter's eye. They have changed the batter's eye. They have darkened the batter's eye in center field. They've extended it into that row of Budweiser seats. They've painted to make it the batter's eye extend further. Is Dyken Park a hard ballpark to hit in? I mean, it should be hitter friendly given the short porches, but is
Nope.
that an easy park to hit in?
I always thought it was a great ballpark to hit in before the new hitters. I always think, I'll go back to Taos Hill. I always saw the baseball fantastic there at that ballpark. I didn't get to experience the darker hitter's eye that they have now, but I always saw the ball great, whether it was lefty or righty. Obviously, I can't speak from a right-hander's perspective because you never know how the angles play out for that. But from all the games I played there, I thought it was a great ballpark. Ball flies true. You get to go to sleep and wake up every day knowing you're going to play because you have a roof, and that changes a lot of things. So, mindset. So it was always good to come to the ballpark knowing you were going to play. Ball, like I said, the ball flies well from pole to pole there. So it was always a great place for me to hit.
Yeah, and I mean, look, I think there's many different reasons this thing or the for the offensive start. I think fans are looking for like one thing to blame. They're looking for, oh, it's the ballpark, it's the batter's eye, it's the new guys that aren't pretty like this
The
isn't
hitting
all
coaches.
the hitting coach. Oh my God, if I got to hear,
I've read so much on Snit and Centron so much. It's like, guys, I'm speaking from a player's perspective, guys. If you're listening, if you're watching, the hitting coaches can only do so much. They're not the ones going to the plate with the bat in their hands. Let's just remember that.
and I mean, I'll give Troy Snicker and Alex Cintron credit. I mean, Brendan Rodgers talked yesterday about how Brendan Rodgers, who got 3 hits in the 3 hits, drove in 3 runs in the Astros win over the Twins, talked yesterday about how they've been working with him to elevate the ball more. And he went into a lot of different details of what they've taught him to widen the base of his batting stance. He had his hands up by his ears. He's now kind of resting them, down below on his shoulders, allowing him to launch the barrel and elevate the ball more. Josh, that's the kind of stuff hitting coaches, they can only give you, okay, here's what you should do. Here's what we think would help you elevate the ball more. But at the end of the day, it's up to Brendan Rodgers or whichever hitter we're talking about to
Yep.
get in the batter's box, translate those adjustments to the box, and actually lift the ball. And Brendan did that yesterday.
Look, I mean, when you're talking about hitting coaches, I've always said there's two parts to a hitting coach, and it comes off a little funny because the thing that hitting coaches do is their job is to get you the most prepared they can before first pitch. They do everything they can to get you prepared, whether it's flips, video analysis, anything like that. And then from then on, their job is, it always made fun because Chili Davis was my guy for years with the A's, was to be the glorified cheerleader. They're supposed to make you feel really good about yourself, make you feel confident going into that at bat. And then after that, they go back to preparing you for what you need to be prepared for. So their job is to get you prepared and then get you confident enough to go into that batter's box with your head up and not going in there with a negative thought in your mind. So that was how I always looked at it. And these guys have done a fantastic job for the years they've been there. I didn't hear anybody complaining when they took them to back-to-back World Series. I'll tell you that. And now that they're not hitting for the last 2 years with guys on and stuff like that, we're going to bash these guys. We got to get off the hitting coaches, guys.
And let's face it too, Josh, you know this, like in today's game, there are a lot of these guys that have their own personal hitting coaches too, like away from Alex Centrone and Troy Snicker. I mean, I don't think this is any breaking news, but Alex Bregman, when he was in Houston, Alex Bregman had his own personal hitting coach that he brought on the road with him.
Yep.
That would have field passes every game. And this is not to say that Alex Bregman didn't listen to Centrone or Snicker, but like these guys, Bregman included, had their own personal guys that they had been working with for many years. And those guys have influence too. So to just crystallize it to, we got to get rid of the hitting coaches. The hitting coaches are the problem. Guys, this is not football. I understand the Texans fired their offensive coordinator after they didn't perform this year. I understand they fired their offensive line coach. This is not football. You don't make coaching changes like that. And also, like you mentioned something like, there's a reason Troy Snicker and Alex Centrone have been in the Astros organization for as long as they've been in. Everyone really likes them. Like they are really well liked in there. They work very well together. It would cause more chaos in the clubhouse if they got rid of them than anything. They're very secure.
Yeah, people don't realize how hard it is to get that connection relationship with your coaching staff. And that's huge. When you can go to a guy at any moment, you can text him. And I remember playing and Snit would go out to dinner. We'd take Snit out to dinner, and Brantley Springer and I would take Snit to dinner. We'd hang out in the hotel just after games. We'd go each other's room and talk about stuff or what happened. But when you go back to the personal guys, I would be willing to bet that every major league player has a person that they can call, whether they come to town or not. I'm speaking from experience. My high school coach, he and I are still close friends to this day. I could call him after games in Oakland when I played in Oakland at 2 a.m. He'd wake up and tell me about my game and talk to me about it. I could call my dad. These guys are just guys that they know your swing. They know your swing more than anybody. They've seen it for longer than anybody than your hitting coaches have. So to have that many guys to figure out something that's going on, you want that in your corner. And they're like I said, when guys like that recognize and know your swing more and can see it, have seen it for a longer time, they're going to have better ways of understanding how to help you get back to where you need to be. And so you can't really bash those guys that have that.
Right. And there's been a lot of discussion about how they can help their approach and things. But guys, like if you've watched the first 7 games of this season, like the at-bats do look different than anything we saw from this lineup last year. They're seeing, as of this moment, they're seeing 3.91 pitches per plate appearance, which is right at league average. Mm-hmm. They saw 3.5 pitches per plate appearance last year. So you're seeing them work counts. You're seeing them see more pitches. The at-bats look more competitive. Now, the one thing, Josh, that has been a little bit concerning, this team has struck out 66 times in 7 games. This is not a team that has struck out a lot ever. They have prided. When you were there and then throughout this era that they've been good, the one thing that they've prided themselves on is they put the ball in play, is they don't strike out, they make contact. And the strikeouts have been a little bit alarming the first 7 games. You look at, I know you want to bring this up.
We'll get there.
Yesterday, Jose Altuve struck out 5 times yesterday for the first time in his career. That's a that's an anomaly, an outlier. But something we talked about, Josh. You have Jose Altuve beat on something, and something that I would have never imagined. Jose
Yeah,
Al-
so
Jose
it,
Altuve had a 5 strikeout game before he has a
before his
5 hit
five.
game.
And I'm baffled by this because when I play, and I'll say that my second career game in the big leagues, or second, no, third, I take that back. I got my platinum out of the way, third game of my career. So, and then never had one again. So that was when you get it out of the way, so you have to panic about it. So I know that probably was a heartbreaker for Altuve, considering he's probably never done that in his whole life. But yeah, I've got actually 2 5-hit games under my belt as a big leaguer. And the funny thing is, I think they both happened within 10 days of each other. So yeah, I did it in Kansas City in 19, and then like a week later, week and a half later, I did it in Anaheim. Um, First one was a 9 inning regulation game. Second one was, I think, a 12 or 13 inning game. So
You
yeah,
know,
take that, Jose.
we say all that, and Altuve's still hitting 321. He's 9 for 28. He's really the only guy on the team that is hitting with any consistency. We did see yesterday Christian Walker finally kind of broke out a little bit, and he had been wearing it. He was frustrated the first 6 games of the homestand. And Josh, I think both Christian and Brendan Rodgers yesterday, Brendan Rodgers, who had 3 hits, they both independently talked about the pressure of being a new guy, of being
Yeah,
a guy that's new in the club. Walker, I mean, he signed a huge contract by Astros standards this offseason. Rodgers doesn't really have the money associated with him, but this is a guy that's trying to win a job. I mean, he's in a battle for playing time at second base. So anytime he goes out there, that it's an audition to get more playing time. As someone like you that you've been traded, you've signed the big contract, you've been a new guy in a clubhouse many times in your career. I'm sure you wanted to make a good first impression, whether it was with the Dodgers, whether it was with the Astros, the A's, whenever you went there. Is that real? Is the pressure to perform as the new guy, is that real? And can that be something that kind of creeps into your mind a little bit first
absolutely.
couple weeks of the year?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, just coming in and learning the guys, meeting the guys. You could talk to these guys, when you're warming up in the outfield for the game. You can only talk so much when you're coming into a clubhouse. And granted, when you come into a new team as a free agent, it's huge because you get that spring training to kind of learn everybody, and they get to learn you. But I was always like, you know what? If these guys are going to make this kind of deal for me or something and pay me whatever, I'm going to go out there and show them that I'm here to play, and I'm going to play hard. So I'm going to earn everybody's respect that way right out of the chute. So one thing you're going to get was you're going to get me playing hard. I was going to go over there and do everything I could to help that team win on any given day, and just try to be a good guy. Don't go out there and be an a-hole. Don't go out there and just be a guy that nobody's going to like, even if you do play hard. So that was just the biggest thing, just getting to learn these guys and just kind of being a sponge, just learning how everybody was, not trying to be this is coming from me, not be too much of a loudmouth. I know, crazy for me, but just learn everybody. Just get in there and learn how everybody runs, how the team functions, how they've been running since before you got there, and how can you just kind of jump into that boat and just keep going down the river, so to speak, not try to stop and slow that boat down and hold guys back. So, but and winning breeds happiness too. So if you're going in there and winning, everybody's going to be happy as well. And I was fortunate enough to be in a lot of winning teams, so it was a lot easier being like that.
And I thought it was interesting to hear Brendan Rodgers specifically. He signed with the Astros in mid-February. So he got there in the middle of spring training. And, the way he described it, and he's not wrong, it's really hard. Everyone thinks there's a lot of downtime in spring training, and that's the time where you can get to know guys. Like, the days are so long, the schedules are so scattered. Some guys are playing a half a game and then leaving. Some guys get their work done early and then don't even show up if you've got enough service time, like you don't even have to show up
Yep.
in the afternoon. Like, Brendan Rodgers said, like, I was in spring training for 4 weeks, but like he was nervous about, I'm trying to make the team. He doesn't know if he's going to make the team. So he doesn't want to, get too comfortable in there. And I mean, it's a difficult endeavor to kind of balance in spring training. But, he talked about, he got on the flight when the Astros flew on Wednesday night from Houston to Minneapolis, and he made a concerted effort. He said, I want to speak up a little bit. I want to get to know these guys. I want to like really try to ingratiate myself with my teammates, because he didn't feel like he got to do that in spring training just because of everything else that was going on in his head. And he said that 2-hour flight, he got watch guys play cards. He got to talk with some guys and like really kind of be himself and kind of relax a little bit. And he said that helped him more than anything. He said it,
Absolutely. Yeah,
and he said,
that's great that he actually made that effort to get out there instead of being that guy that kind of sat in his own row, flipped the iPad on and put the headphones in. I love that because I kind of did a similar thing when I got traded to the Dodgers. You know, Rich Hill and I got traded in a package deal. Well, it was actually really nice because we had both teams had an off day. We were already actually in Anaheim for our off day with the A's. So we literally got a 40-minute ride over to the Dodger Stadium, but we were actually flying to Colorado. We were flying to Denver that day. So we got into the clubhouse, went and met Dave Roberts, and then went straight out to the team bus. So we got our team bus ride, kind of got to meet everybody. And I did kind of the same thing on the flight. I just went back and hung out with like all the veterans and watched them play cards and just kind of, shot the crap with them and kind of learned and, talked about playing against these guys. Like you went up to Kershaw, like, bro, like, I got more service time than you do. I need 22 off your back. Like, let's go. And that was it. I think I had a few more days, I think, than Kersh at that point. So it was a good little joke that, I went up to an easy first ballot Hall of Famer, even at that point, to kind of so-called break the ice and kind of just let them know, like, hey guys, I'm here to joke around, but we're here to really get serious.
so what number did you end up taking?
I took 11.
Okay. So did you? I mean, that was not even Clayton Kershaw did not even consider giving you his number.
He chuckled at me, but everybody knew I was messing with him. Now, if you try to do that and stand on your ground, that'd be the biggest butthead move of all time, especially in an organization like that. Like, so you get it. There's boundaries there. So numbers are just numbers, and it is what it is.
I mean, yeah. So again, there is a common thing here to like the first week or so of a season can be so ripe for overreaction. Everyone can, everyone's been waiting for baseball so much. And in spring training, it's hard to like have negative storylines come out of spring training unless someone gets hurt. Like there is eternal optimism in spring training because if a guy is playing well in spring training, then it's, oh man, like he's prepared for the season, he's ready to go. If a guy's not playing well in spring training, it's spring training. Stats don't matter. Like they're gonna roll right in and they're gonna be ready to go. They're just working on stuff. So inherently, it's hard to come out of spring training with like negative thoughts. Like you think every time a team breaks camp, you think, oh, this is the team that's going to win the division. They're going to win 100 games easily. And then like reality sets in, like that this is not spring training anymore. There's some stuff going on. These games matter. The other teams are good. Look, the Astros have faced some really good pitching to start this year too. I know no one wants to hear that, but like Jordan Hicks, when they faced him in the first game of the Giants series, like there was no lineup in baseball that was hitting Jordan Hicks that night with how electric he was. He was sitting 98 with the sinker, was throwing backdoor sliders. Like no one was touching him. I don't care who.
No, Chandler, hitting's easy in the big league. Don't you know that?
Yeah.
Hitting's easy.
The Troy Snicker and Alex Intron should have prepared them for 99 going 8 different ways and not knowing where it's coming from. Same thing with Logan Webb the next day. It's not like this guy's perennially getting Cy Young votes and is the ace of the staff. Like they should have known, like elevate the ball on a sinker baller. Like they should have known to keep the ball in the air. Like that's on the hitting coaches, right?
100% on those guys. It's so easy to hit 98 even when it's straight, and then you add 14 inches of horizontal movement. It's just easy to make that adjustment when you've got 0.06 seconds to react anyway.
Well, what everyone thinks could help, I guess, is these torpedo bats. And
here we go.
We have not talked to you since the advent or since the Yankees. They did not debut the torpedo bats, but since the Yankees made this thing such a mainstream talking point. An update from the Astros perspective, Joe Espada said this week that he does think that a shipment of them are going to be coming, and he thinks some guys will test them out, whether that's in BP, whether that's in a game, that's still to be decided. But I think that was kind of expected. I think there's going to be every clubhouse in the big leagues is going to get some of these, and they're going to try them out. It's been funny, Josh, to see how much MLB has started to lean in and market this. Like you're looking on their official account, you're looking on their official website. They're having stories about the torpedo bats. They're having stories about what they do. Like it's pretty clear that MLB is behind this. So any Astros fan that was thinking this is nefarious activity by the Yankees, that they were trying to game the system, I'm here to tell you that's not true. MLB would not be leaning into it so hard if that were the case. So, Josh, as you look at these bats, they move the weight down from the barrel to move it down. we were talking about it before the podcast and talking to some players. It seems like the guys that could benefit the most from this are guys that get jammed a lot, or guys that miss hit balls, guys that don't get the ball in the barrel a much.
Yep.
Do you think? And again, I'm not saying if the Astros start using torpedo bats, the offense is going to turn around. But
No,
do you think these could be helpful? And what do you think, just in total, about the design of these bats and what they're intended to do?
I think there's no downfall to using one. If you're comfortable with it, go for it. Because even if you're not a guy that gets jammed a lot, you're going to get jammed over the course of the season plenty of times. You're going to swing and miss at some that you feel like you shouldn't have. So I think that making that adjustment for the barrel could definitely benefit you. I'm not saying it's going to turn your career around and make you a Hall of Famer or a perennial All Star, but it's definitely going to bring some positive movements to your at bats. It's going to help you foul off pitches. It's going to help you get to that sinker inside that's a little high. It's going to help you just maybe give you that dying pigeon that flies over second base, or gives you that little extra pop that we've seen some smaller guys benefit from by getting a little bit more juice on that perspective. And I love the outbreak that this bat is getting, because everybody that is talking about it makes it seem like these bats are illegal. And they're 100% within the parameters of being legal in baseball. So I think everybody's just mad that, it's the Yankees that came out first. And, guys, I'm with you. I don't like the Yankees just as much as you do. But we can't bash these guys because they're performing because of it. You can't be mad at them because they're using something that's 100% legal and seeing benefits from that, when everybody has that option and has always had that option. Because like you and I said, this is not the first time the torpedo bat has been introduced to the baseball world. It's just something that's been more focused on by more people.
I'm curious from your perspective, because of the torpedo bats, we are getting a lot more insight into bat design and just this type of bats players like to use. Like, I guess if you could speak from a player's perspective to how meticulous and how picky, I guess, certain players are about the size of their bats, about where they get them, the manufacturer. What kind of bats did you like to use? And would you have even considered, I guess, making such a drastic change in season to going to a torpedo bat or something like this?
So for me, I was always a big barrel guy anyway. Old Hickory was my company. I had them since 2008, my second year in professional ball. And I always loved their bats. And like I said, I used a big barrel bat anyway. So my barrel wasn't big in the hands, but it was very extensive from probably 2 or 3 inches past the logo all the way to the tip. It was just a big barrel. It was called JL18, which was Javier Lopez's bat model from the 90s, that Old Hickory had put in. So that was my so to speak. But if you're talking about guys and specifics on bats, I know a lot of guys that are very picky about not switching anything about it. For me, I rarely even switched my colors of my bat because I was so superstitious. It was always either all black or half and half. Like I couldn't do any other color. I just thought it looked weird. So I was very picky about mine. Plenty of guys have been that way. But then again, there's always guys like, I remember early on when I signed with Houston, the first year, if Altuve was like on an 0 for 10 stretch, he'd just go grab a random bat out of the bag, whether it was his or not, and go up there and get a knock with it. So that was just a crazy thing when guys like that would happen. But I'm sure there's probably a lot more guys in the league that would probably not want to switch and change it, because you just never know if it's going to change your swing or not. But when you talk about weight distribution and barrel length, like for me, from my perspective, is always my weight distribution was always in the middle of the bat anyway. I never had the top heavy bats. I hated top heavy bats. I felt like they made the bat drag and be longer through the zone. And so I always put mine in the middle anyway. So even if I wanted to switch to that torpedo style, it probably wouldn't have made that big of a difference for me per se. But you just never know what guys are feel comfortable with. And like you said, it could change your swing path, and that could be a complete disaster. But for me, I think when you're looking at it, there's no negative downside to switching to it if you're comfortable with it.
Yeah, it's why I think if and when the Astros get their shipment in, you may see guys like testing it in the cage, testing it
Yeah.
in BP. I don't think this is something you take straight out to the game, because let's face it, like the Yankees didn't just go into their opening series against the Brewers and think, hey, like let's try torpedo bats on opening weekend. Like, no, like they have been working with these in spring training. It just so happened that it got run because these games now mean something. They're all on television, and Jazz Chisholm's torpedo bat was exaggerated. The design of it just looked so funky that it caught everyone's attention. But talking to one, I'm not going to name him, but talking to one player specifically in the Astros clubhouse, they said that, these have been in use for a while. They just, again, they were not as exaggerated as Jazz Chisholm's, as some of those on the Yankees where you looked at him, it looked like a bowling pin.
It did. Remember the old Vortex bats from the 90s?
Yes.
That's what his first picture of his looked like. And it was funny reading all the memes about it. But yeah, when you're exaggerating it that much, and I think it goes back to being the Yankees.
Yeah.
I think plays a big part of it. Jazz has always been an outspoken guy.
Mhm.
And he's always going to speak his mind, which, I think is great because all these guys are on him on social media and he's just calling them out and calling them idiots, which is great because that'd be something that I would love to do. But yeah, I think it's just more magnified because of that. And like you said, we don't even know what these guys were doing in spring training. They could have been taking batting practice with it every day, and we would have never known. And now that it's incorporated in games that matter, and now that they're televised and nationally covered, it gets more and more notoriety. And it's just ridiculous how it's really asinine how ridiculous it's really turned into.
Yeah, and I do think, the Diamondbacks going into the Bronx and Corbin Burns pitching well. Zach Gallen carved the Yankees up the other day. Like, torpedo bats, again, they're not this cure-all. Like they couldn't hit good pitching from Zach Gallen. They couldn't hit Corbin Burns. Like, it's not like these things, if you get them, the Astros will all of a sudden start slugging 600 as a team. Like, it's a placebo effect to some extent. And then to another extent, it's early in the season. The sample sizes are small, and there's a lot of, media and people out there just looking for storylines, just looking for things to write until the sample size gets to a point where you can you can start writing trend stories. Because right now, writing trends or, writing anyone off, calling anyone a bust or calling anyone on a breakthrough, it's too early. It's 7 games. So everyone's kind of in that weird middle ground now of trying to find things to write about, and torpedo bats are getting if you want me to be completely honest, torpedo bats are getting clicks, and everybody,
and that's what we want.
Everybody needs clicks. So,
and if you're a guy, that's what you want. You want the stories.
Yeah. So, again, won't be surprised if you start seeing the Astros incorporate it a little bit into BP. I did find it interesting, and I'm sure you saw the comments Aaron Judge made. Aaron Judge was asked if he uses torpedo bats, and he said no, and I'll let the last 3 years of my track record speak for itself. So
I love that.
There could be a guy like Jordan Alvarez. Does his track record speaks for itself? Do you think he needs to switch to a torpedo bat? Like, probably not. Like, I do think, again, this is just my very, very opinion reading between the lines. I think this will be more for guys that, maybe don't have the established track records, have scuffled a little bit, have been trying to find and search for their offensive continuity. I think you'll see those guys take the torpedo bats, and maybe not some of these established guys that, again, are set in their ways, have swung the same model of bat for 8 to 10 years in the big leagues. Like, it's such a superstitious and such a ritualistic sport that just making that big of a change, I just don't think would work for veteran guys.
No, I think guys that are always been so successful are not going to even look the way of a torpedo bat. I think the bats benefit the guys most who don't have that extra thump behind their swing. I think it benefits those guys, maybe get the balls into the gap a little more, give them a little bit more extra slugging percentage in their stats. I think those are the guys that are going to benefit the most from it, because they're not guys that are known for driving the ball out of the ballpark. The guys that, the Judges, the Altuves, the Jordans, the Schwarbers, those guys don't need that. They're not worried about changing anything in their swing or their bats.
We've talked now for almost 30 minutes about bats and lineups and offense, when it's been the pitching that has the Astros where they're at. If not for their pitching, you kind of have to wonder where they'd be. They're 3-4 right now, solely on the back of their pitching staff. And they've got a 3.14 ERA across the first 7 games, but the number that sticks out, their whip is an even 1. So they're allowing basically 1 base runner per inning, which is very, very good. We could pick a lot of different people to talk about on this staff that have pitched well, that have really, Josh Hader has, after the rocky start that he had last season, he's come in and not locked down 3 saves, 2 of which had some heart palpitations induced. But, yesterday in Minnesota was a clean inning, got through it, no problem. The guy I want to talk about, Josh, and look, I knew, we kind of all expected that he was going to come out strong, but Hunter Brown, he is a dude, man. Like,
he is a stopping force on that mound.
He is. I mean, look, I think we all knew after the last 4 months of last year, like he was going to come in and he was a trendy Cy Young pick. He was kind of that guy that's kind of waiting in the wings to become that ace. And look, he's given up runs his first two starts. Like Juan Soto hit a perfectly placed cutter for an opposite field homer off of him. Yesterday gave up a triple to start the game and then had some bad luck. Byron Buxton had an infield hit. Just some bad batted ball luck. Then he settled in and retired 15 of the last 16 he faced. He's sitting 98. The changeup is nasty. He's throwing that cutter. I'm almost ready to say this. He has some of the most electric stuff, not only on this staff but in the sport. And I think as this season goes on, Josh, like the entire industry is going to see that this kid is the next maybe budding ace that the Astros have up their sleeve. He has been, despite the ERA and what the ERA looks like, he has been electric in his first two
Oh,
starts.
without a doubt. When you go back to last year, and you can go, I think it was, gosh, was it early to mid-May when he came out of the bullpen in Detroit? He has just been a completely different guy since that day. He has been, everybody compared him to the JV squared. He was always going to be the next Justin Verlander. And yes, that potential is there, but what he's been doing since then has just been unbelievable. Like you said, I like the ace comparison. You got, Frommer, who's your ace throughout the rest of his Astros tenure, whether it be now, this year extension. But if you don't feel like you're going to get Frommer, you feeling pretty good with this guy sitting there right behind him, ready to take that number one rollover and carry this team. And the biggest thing, like you talked about, he's had some unfortunate luck, but he has been locked down when he needs to be. He is, he stopped a steamroller three-game skid, comes out there and puts the brakes on a three-game skid. But when you talk about aces and guys that can really help your team, and they become stoppers, they stop those losing streaks, get you back on that win train. And this kid, he does that every fifth day. He's out there making that happen for these guys. He's keeping your lineup in the game for when they're ready to figure it out and score some runs for him. So he's not getting discouraged by that, the low run support. He's not getting upset by that. He's just going out there doing his job. And that's the guy that you want at the top of your rotation.
I think Joe Espada even mentioned yesterday, if you watched Hunter Brown at the beginning of last year, he had some of those similar characteristics to his first month last year where he got hit around a lot first month last year, but a lot of those outings began with like an infield hit or like a broken bat blooper that fell into no man's land in the outfield. It was just bad luck. And Hunter just wasn't in a position mentally or in his maturation process to be able to let that go, to be able to just say, you know what, like, okay, like he hit it 45 off the bat and it had a .090 XBA, but it fell in. Like, okay, like I can't control that. Let's go focus on the next hitter. He just didn't have that wherewithal yet. And I think he's earned that now. He's got that. You see it. Like he didn't get down in the Mets series when Juan Soto homered off of him yesterday in Minneapolis. He's Juan Soto, exactly.
Yeah.
Yesterday in Minneapolis, like he could have very easily gotten down in that first inning when he gives up two. There was one hard hit ball. It was to Matt Wallner on that triple off the wall in right field. He could have easily gotten down 2-0. The way this lineup has not been producing, you kind of think 2 runs feels like 9 or 10.
Mm-hmm.
He bared down. He carved up what is on paper supposed to be a pretty good lineup for the Twins. I mean, they have 2 1-1s, Byron Buxton and Carlos Correa. Like they've got guys in that lineup that can make you pay if you have damage. And he just toyed with them yesterday. Like I think they have to feel very, very good about the 1-2 in their rotation with Framber Valdez and Hunter Brown. There are not many teams in baseball that are going to have a better 1-2 than those two guys.
No, not at all. I think one of the things that stands out to me about Hunter is when you look at his early last year, he was always kind of, I can't remember if it was glove side or arm side. He kind of focused on one side of the plate every time. And then I think once he turned things around, he developed the cutter, started using the cutter more and the two-steamer. I think the running two-steamer that he throws was his big beneficiary because he could backdoor it to righties, butt hip it to lefties, and then jam righties and run it away. So I think his usage of just those two pitches on top of being able to throw 100 and throw, a really good changeup and a pretty good curveball. So it's adding depth and perception for him. And I think that's one thing that he kind of needed to learn last year, because last year was all right, I'm going to get through the 2 strikes and I'm going to try to elevate my heater or get you to chase my curveball. And I think hitters kind of realize that and would either pick one to hit on because, when you got 2 options, it's a lot easier to hit when you got 4 or 5 options to try to hit. So him being smarter and not being discouraged also has made him better because he's learned how to utilize those two pitches. And I think the cutter's been one of his biggest pitches, and it's really the one that kind of goes unnoticed and one that he doesn't really use the most. So it's one of those pitches that, hey, this is still a very good plus pitch for me to have in my very back pocket.
Yeah, the problem with him last year, and he's been open about saying this, like hitters are just diving to the outer half because he had nothing that they could respect on the inner half. So it was, I mean, when they got 2 strikes, they were just sitting on anything. They would spit on anything that came inside because they knew it was going to miss. Because if he was throwing inside, it was a misfire. Because
And it makes 98 a lot easier to hit when you're doing that.
Right. So he had to get, and again, everyone has pointed to the sinker, and it is true that pitch turned his season around last year and probably his career. But the sinker is not a good pitch. Like if you look at it metrically, if you look at how it grades with other sinkers in baseball, like Josh Miller, the pitching coach, has been open and saying this, and Hunter too, like it does not grade out as a good pitch, but it gives him it's got the high velocity and it gives him enough of a presence on the inner half that hitters have to respect it. They have to respect
it changes his whole repertoire. His repertoire becomes that much better because of it, because it's still in the back of your head as a hitter. Yeah, it's not great, but like you said, it's got the velocity, it's got that movement. And when you're throwing it from the same arm plane and then you throw out that cutter, it changes everything. So it doesn't have to be a plus pitch to make you as that pitcher and make your repertoire better, because an average sinker can make a great cutter phenomenal or a good curveball phenomenal. So it does, like I said, it just doesn't have to be great, but as long as it makes you great.
I guess we're required by law to mention Cam Smith in any Crush City territory episode. Cam has I think we did not expect him to hit 4 homers in the first homestand. We did not expect him to get off to this unbelievable start. It's been a little bit of a struggle for Cam Smith, as I think everyone would have envisioned for a 22-year-old that's got 130 professional plate appearances. He's 2 for 14 with 6 strikeouts. Joe Espada, I believe he started 5 of the first 7 games. He got 2 days off on the homestand because Joe Espada wanted to get Zach DeZenzo in there. The at-bats have looked okay. He doesn't look overmatched, but Josh, I'm curious to get your thoughts on this. Coming out of spring training, all we talked about was his plate discipline, about how he saw everything early out of hand, about how it was good to see him controlling at bats, not swinging, like making his swing decisions early. I know you don't want this kid to come in and swing at everything he sees, but there have been a lot of at bats where, to me, at least to me, he looks a little passive. He looks like he's almost he's afraid of chasing. So he's not going to be maybe as aggressive as you see other guys who come up, and prospects that come up and they're ready, they're aggressive, and they're hunting. What have you thought of Cam Smith? Again, small sample size, it's been 17 plate appearances, but what have you thought of the at bats? Have you thought has he looked in control of himself as a 22-year-old in an almost unprecedented situation?
I'm with you. I think he looks fine. I think even if he's in his own head, he looks comfortable up there. The swing looks good. I think a little more, I guess, because he passive aggressiveness. You could be a little more aggressive, but be restricted at the same time. Pick that first pitch, pick that second pitch. Pick the spot you want it. If you get your fastball, go out there and ambush that thing. If you see something else, don't even think about twitching at it. And I think that's something that he could work on, because we know it's there. We know the skills there. We know the plate discipline's there. We've seen it. But to go back to what we talked about, they faced some pretty disgusting pitching to start. The whole team is doing pretty much similar to what he's doing anyway. Nobody's hitting. So you really can't blame the kid alone. And like I said, before this season started, I think that he was the right move to start. I think we were all going to expect some struggles, considering nervousness or whatever it may be, a 22-year-old being so young. But I think he's right where he needs to be. Obviously, 6 strikeouts is a little bit more to kind of raise a red flag at. But, he's got a week under his belt now. He can kind of go into the routine of being a more normal kid there and a normal player, and kind of get used to that. Got the first week jitters out of the way. Now, if we're talking about this in 3 weeks, it might be a little bit more time to be like, hey, this is something we really got to figure out and focus on. But like I said, first week's over, put it behind you, like we talked about at the beginning of the pod. Let it go. This kid seems to be doing fine, and he's going to find a groove, and he gets hot, and he could ride it out. But the good thing is he doesn't look off balance. He doesn't look, silly up there. That's the big focal point. If the numbers aren't there, look at the approach, and you can understand where he's at, and maybe not doing so well. But like I said, he looks comfortable. Swing looks great, and that's the positives you're looking at.
It's going to get no easier for him because we're currently in Minneapolis, where it is very cold. And
Yep.
Cam Smith is a West Palm Beach native who played at Florida State. He has. I actually asked him the other day what's the coldest game he ever played in, and he said it was at Notre Dame at one point in his college career, and he said it was about 40 degrees and hailing. And I said, well, you're about to be in about 40 degrees for about 8 days in a row. It's going to get no easier because he's playing the cold weather, and then after Minneapolis, the Astros go to Seattle, where they are going to. I mean, that's the best rotation in baseball. They're going to see
next time he starts before I ever get you. And I want you to walk in there and you give him this advice. If he wears sleeves, if he doesn't wear sleeves, tell him you put Aquaphor all over your skin or baby oil. Closes up your pores so the cold doesn't get in. Because I'm with you. I'm a South Georgia native. We have thin skin. We're made for the hot and the humid. Cover up those pores, get a little thick base of some Aquaphor in there, and then you put your layers on. You'll be good to go.
It was funny, I don't remember which Rogers it was. The one on the Giants, I think it was Tyler Rogers. They have the Twins. I think I need this. This is bad potting, but I need to look up whatever Rogers it was that was on the Twins, or not on the Twins, on the Giants. No, it's Tyler Rogers.
Tyler, yeah.
Cam Smith faced him in the
underarm guy, right?
Right. And that to me had to be his welcome to the show moment, because there ain't no way in high A they got a guy that's 6'6" throwing from underneath, basically from behind his butt, and it coming in. And look, there's going to be a lot of those. Like, he's going to have a lot of welcome to the show moments, being in the cold in Minneapolis, going to Seattle, and they get Logan Gilbert the first game in Seattle. That's a lot of limbs. That's a lot of velocity coming from a big, tall man. I think they get Luis Castillo the next day. That's a really hard 99-mile-an-hour sinker. Just saw that with Jordan Hicks. So, look, he's going. I think it's going to settle in. But Josh, you did bring up a point, and we'll get out of here after this. But I asked Joe Espada the other day, and this wasn't referencing any specific player, but I asked, is there a threshold or a number of at bats to where you start thinking like this is not a small sample size? And like, I basically asked, when do you start paying attention to trends? Well, give me a number of at bats.
I'd say 50.
Yeah, that's what Joe said.
50 is a safe number because you're at the point where you've gotten comfortable. Your timing should be where you want it to be. And I think that's where you're falling into the rhythm of being where you should or shouldn't be. So I think 50's a really good number to be like, all right, is this kid going to be okay? Is this kid going to need some more time to figure it out? So I think, I'm with Joe. 50 is a great number.
And let's say it right now. Cam Smith's taken 17 plate appearances and 14 at bats. So he's probably got another, maybe 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks to accumulate that 50. And then that's when I think the conversations, if it still looks like this, if, he's in control of himself in the box, but the results are not there, at the end of the day, like he can show as much plate discipline as he wants. Like, in the big leagues, it's about results. It's about
we need results.
Yep. And so that's when I think the conversations will start to happen about, would he be better served going back down or things like that. But again, let's get him to 50 at bats, and then that conversation can start. And when it does, we will cover it here on Crush City territory the next 2 weeks. We will see whether Cam Smith can kind of break out of, or maybe kind of reintroduce himself and get some slug into his game. We'll see if Jose Altuve can avoid his second career 5 strikeout game. We'll see if he can get his first 5 hit game, maybe get up with Josh Reddick and maybe inch closer to Josh Reddick on the 5 hit game leaderboard.
And to go back to the Cam Smith thing, there's other things to look at as well. Like, when you get to 50, if he's even hitting 210, 220, how are his non-hits looking? Like, is he lining out? We know, the first week, I know Christian was having some hard hit balls. Like, opening day, he had 3 over 105 and he was 0 for 3 to show for it. So if my man's out there hitting, laser shows and he's hitting 210, that's a lot different than hitting, the 200 with 20 strikeouts. So, and if the team's winning too, if he's hitting out there, hitting the ball hard, having good at bats, and the team's winning, you're not going to send this kid anywhere. Now, if the
No.
team's kind of struggling or if they're winning and he's just not hitting the ball hard, then you have a whole different conversation. So it's not just about we need Cam hitting 300 with some homers and RBIs. It's how the ball's coming off his bat, how the team's doing, and how he's looking. So there's all kinds of different ways. So
yeah, and it definitely should be noted that, you know, the 2 hits Cam Smith does have were, I would not say great looking swings.
Lasers. They were not lasers. No.
They were he was late, and it was 2 opposite field. One kind of bounced through, had eyes, and the other one was just a ground ball to the other way that got through the right side. So, and there haven't been a ton of hard hit outs either. There haven't been a ton of lasers hit all over the place. Again, 17 plate appearances. We're not overreacting, but since we mentioned it, I mean, it should be noted that it hasn't been he has not had the Christian Walker track of all these lasers that are getting hit right at guys. It's been the contact has not been great. Again, he's working good at bats. He's seeing pitches, but again, the big leagues is about production. And
get him a torpedo bat. He'll be fine.
Yep. Who knows? Maybe he'll debut with a torpedo bat. Maybe that'll help him out. If he does, we will talk about it here on Crush City Territory. Guys, please rate and review us on Apple. Please subscribe on YouTube so you can get a notification every time we post a new pod. Again, 3 times a week during the regular season. So once this series in Minneapolis wraps up, I'll be headed to Seattle, but we will talk to you guys after this series, get a recap of it, and then prepare for the Mariners, which is always a very tightly contested series. Scott Service being gone kind of takes some of the real fire out of it, because Scott Service was not well liked by many members of the Astros clubhouse. So maybe it'll be a little more peaceful, a little more calm without Scott Service, but certainly 2 teams that do not like each other very much. 2 talented teams, the Mariners, obviously, with one of the best pitching staffs in the American League. So will be a challenge for the Astros and their lineup. Maybe their lineup's kind of rounding into form, but going into Seattle will be a big test. So we'll talk to you about all that and more on our next episode of Crush City Territory. Thanks, guys. Thank you for watching, and talk to you later.
See you guys.